Welcome to my philosophy channel. Have you ever looked into a mirror and truly believed that the choices you make are entirely your own? We walk through this breathtakingly complex world clinging to a comforting illusion. We convince ourselves that we are sovereign individuals, navigating our lives with absolute free will, steering our own ships across an open ocean. We think our successes are the result of our own brilliance, and our failures are simply bad luck. What if I told you that almost every decision you have ever made has been invisibly shaped, manipulated, and constrained by the anticipated actions of the people around you? What if we are not solitary sailors on an empty sea, but rather dancers tangled in a giant, invisible web of mutual dependency, where every single step you take forces the entire web to shift? Today, we are going to explore a profound concept that will completely shatter your current understanding of reality. We are going to delve deeply into the philosophy of game theory. Chapter 1. The poker game of existence and the illusion of transparency. To truly comprehend the depth of our entanglement, we must first travel back to the year 1944. The world was consumed by the chaos of global conflict, and amidst this destruction, two brilliant minds, the mathematician John von Neumann and the economist Oskar Morgenstern, published a revolutionary manifesto titled Theory of Games and Economic Behavior. These two scholars were haunted by a singular, profound question. What actually happens to truth and logic when the decisions of free individuals collide and irrevocably alter one another? Before this moment, classical thinkers viewed human conflict like a grand, elegant game of chess. In chess, the board is completely open. Every single piece is visible to both players. There are no secrets, no hidden agendas, only pure, cold calculation. But von Neumann realized a terrifying truth about human nature. He argued that real life is absolutely nothing like chess. Real life is like a high-stakes game of poker. In the relentless game of human existence, you hold cards in your hands that no one else can see. Your deepest desires, your hidden fears, your true motivations, these are concealed in the darkest corners of your mind. Simultaneously, you are staring across the table at another human being, desperately trying to pierce through their mask, knowing full well they are wearing that mask specifically to deceive you. You must constantly anticipate their lies while carefully crafting your own illusions. This is not merely a mathematical model. It is a tragic philosophical statement about the human condition. We are forever trapped in a state of incomplete knowledge, forced to make life-altering decisions while staring into the unknowable void of another person's consciousness. This simple yet devastating realization did not just change economics. It fundamentally rewrote our understanding of psychology, politics, biology, and the very fabric of human interaction. Chapter Summary. In this chapter, we explored how the birth of game theory shifted our worldview from the perfect transparency of chess to the deceptive, secretive reality of poker, revealing the fundamental isolation and uncertainty inherent in human consciousness. Chapter 2. The prison of rationality and the tragedy of self-interest. To understand the true cruelty of our logical minds, we must examine the most famous parable in all of game theory: the prisoner's dilemma. Imagine two business partners who have engaged in a shadowy enterprise. They are suddenly arrested by the authorities, dragged into a cold, windowless building, and locked inside two completely separate interrogation rooms. They cannot hear each other. They cannot see each other. They are utterly isolated. The interrogator walks in and presents a deceptively simple choice. He says, if you both remain completely silent, we lack the evidence to convict you of the major crime, and you will both spend merely 1 year in prison. However, if you betray your partner and confess while he remains silent, you will walk out of that door a free man today, and your partner will rot in a cell for 5 long years. If he confesses and you remain silent, he walks free, and you serve 5 years. But if both of you give in to fear and confess, you will both be condemned to 3 years in prison. Now, close your eyes and place yourself inside that claustrophobic room. The walls are pressing in. The clock is ticking. What do? You must now attempt to simulate the mind of your partner. If your partner chooses to remain silent, displaying absolute loyalty, your most logical move is to betray him, because walking free is quantifiably better than spending 1 year behind bars. If your partner betrays you, driven by panic, your most logical move is still to betray him, because 3 years in prison is vastly better than suffering for 5 years as the ultimate fool. Do you see the horrifying mathematical trap closing around your soul? Regardless of what your partner does, your purest, most rational self-interest demands that you drive a knife into his back. This is what philosophers and mathematicians call a dominant strategy. The tragic result is inevitable. 2 perfectly rational, highly intelligent human beings will stare at the cold, hard logic, betray one another, and lock themselves away for 3 years. Yet, if they had simply abandoned their cold rationality, if they had yielded to irrational faith and mutual trust, they could have both suffered merely 1 year. This is the core philosophical crisis of the prisoner's dilemma. Perfect individual rationality mathematically guarantees absolute collective destruction. Does this not perfectly mirror the tragedies we witness every day in our modern society? Why do rival businesses engage in suicidal price wars until both are bankrupt? Why do we relentlessly exploit the natural environment until the earth itself cannot sustain us? Because no one wants to be the sucker who stops first. We are paralyzed by the fear of being exploited, and thus, we rationally march together toward our own demise. Chapter summary. In this chapter, we dissected the prisoner's dilemma to reveal the terrifying paradox that when individuals act in their own perfect self-interest, they mathematically guarantee a worse outcome for everyone, proving that pure rationality can be a destructive curse. Chapter 3. The stagnant equilibrium and the illusion of stability. This tragic flaw in human logic leads us directly to a concept that defines the architecture of our social suffering: the Nash Equilibrium. Named after the brilliant and tormented mathematician John Nash, this principle describes a state of exhausted paralysis. Nash mathematically proved that in any game with a finite number of players, as long as everyone is acting rationally, the system will eventually settle into a rigid, unchanging state. In this specific state, no single individual has any motivation to unilaterally change their behavior, because doing so would immediately make their own situation even worse. Think back to our 2 prisoners sitting in their separate cells, both having betrayed each other. They are now trapped in a Nash equilibrium. If one of them magically decided to take back his confession, while the other did not, his punishment would jump from 3 years to 5 years. Therefore, even though they both deeply regret the overall outcome, neither dare move. Is this not a profoundly depressing metaphor for so much of human existence? How many miserable marriages, toxic workplaces, and corrupt political systems persist for decades? not because people enjoy them, but because the cost of being the only one to rebel is too terrifying to bear. We look at a flawed society and wonder why people do not simply change it. The philosophy of the Nash Equilibrium answers with brutal honesty. Because stability does not mean happiness. Stability often merely means that the fear of moving is greater than the pain of staying still. We are anchored by our anticipation of the other person's apathy. Chapter summary. In this chapter, we uncovered the philosophical despair hidden within the Nash Equilibrium, demonstrating how societies and relationships often remain trapped in miserable but stable states simply because changing direction unilaterally guarantees immediate punishment. Chapter 4. The shadow of the future and the price of trust. If the world consisted only of isolated, one-time encounters, humanity would have consumed itself centuries ago. We would be trapped in an endless cycle of brutal betrayals. But the universe possesses a fascinating antidote to the prisoner's dilemma: the dimension of time. In reality, we do not just interact with someone once and then disappear into the void. We must face our colleagues, our spouses, and our competitors tomorrow, the next day, and the day after that. We enter what game theorists call an infinite repeated game. When the game stretches into an unknown, infinite future, the entire philosophical landscape violently shifts. Suddenly, the shadow of tomorrow falls upon the decisions of today. If you ruthlessly betray your partner today for a short-term gain, you guarantee that they will mercilessly retaliate against you tomorrow. Over a lifelong timeline, the accumulated pain of their vengeance will infinitely outweigh your fleeting moment of victory. Therefore, a breathtaking transformation occurs. Cold, calculating self-interest magically gives birth to genuine cooperation. Morality, in this chilling view, is not a divine gift brought down from the heavens. It is a mathematical necessity, born from the fear of future retaliation. This explains why people in small, tight-knit villages generally treat each other with kindness and respect. It is not because they are inherently better humans than city dwellers. It is because they cannot escape each other. The horizon of their interaction is infinite, and thus, betrayal carries an infinite cost. Building upon this, we enter the realm of dynamic games, where decisions flow like a river, one after another. Here, we encounter the profound concept of the credible commitment. Words are extremely cheap in the theater of human existence. If you want to prove to an adversary that you will not attack them, making a promise is useless. To be truly believed, you must deliberately sabotage your own freedom. You must burn your own bridges and destroy your own escape routes. If you want to prove you are committed to a diet, you do not just make a wish. You throw all the food out of your house, making weakness physically impossible. By voluntarily inflicting weakness upon yourself, you mathematically prove the strength of your intention. What a beautiful paradox of human psychology. True power and persuasion often come from willfully surrendering your own options. Chapter summary. In this chapter, we explored how the infinite arrow of time forces selfish individuals to invent morality through repeated interactions, and how burning our own bridges is often the only way to make our promises philosophically meaningful to others. Chapter 5. The theater of masks and the cost of signaling. We must now wade into even murkier waters. What do we do when we are surrounded by total strangers, and we desperately need to know their true nature? You do not know if a potential employee is truly brilliant or simply a skilled liar. You do not know if a romantic partner wants a lifelong soulmate or a fleeting distraction. You are wandering blindly through the fog of asymmetric information. To survive in this fog, humanity has developed an elaborate, painful system known as signaling. Let us confront a brutal reality about our modern world. Why do millions of young people sacrifice years of their youth, plunge into suffocating financial debt, and endure immense psychological stress, simply to obtain a prestigious university degree? A dark truth lingers beneath the surface. The actual knowledge contained in those textbooks is often irrelevant to the demands of their future careers. So why does the corporate world worship these degrees? Because the degree acts as an incredibly expensive, painful signal. Anyone can claim to be hardworking. Anyone can claim to be intelligent, but to survive 4 years of rigorous academic torture proves beyond a shadow of a doubt that you possess endurance, submission, and cognitive capacity. The very fact that the process is agonizing is what makes it valuable. If it were easy to fake, it would tell the employer nothing. Consider the absurdity of modern advertising. Why do giant corporations spend millions of dollars displaying their logos on billboards for products everyone already knows? They are not giving you new information. They are performing a financial ritual. They are taking massive piles of cash and publicly setting them on fire before your eyes. By burning this money, they are sending a powerful philosophical signal. We have so much capital, and we are so confident in the quality of our product that we are willing to suffer this massive financial loss simply to catch your attention. If our product were defective, you would never buy it a second time, and these millions of dollars would be wasted. Therefore, the sheer extravagance of the waste is the absolute proof of their sincerity. We live in a world where truth can only be communicated through the willing endurance of unnecessary pain or extreme cost. We bleed simply to prove that we are real. Chapter Summary. In this chapter, we unveiled the tragic theater of asymmetric information, revealing how society forces individuals and corporations to endure immense pain, waste, and financial cost simply to send believable signals about their hidden inner worth. Chapter 6. The Hall of Mirrors and the Madness of Crowds. As we reach the apex of game theory, we encounter its most mind-bending and vertigo-inducing concept: common knowledge. Common knowledge is not just what you know and what I know. It is what you know I know and what I know you know I know, spiraling downward into an infinite philosophical abyss. It is the invisible glue that holds collective illusions together. Imagine a bizarre puzzle involving 3 children playing in the mud. Unbeknownst to them, all 3 have smudged dirt upon their foreheads. They stand in a circle, looking at each other. Every child can clearly see the dirt on the other 2 faces, but none can see their own. A teacher enters the room and announces a simple fact: at least one of you has a dirty face. After this statement, the teacher looks at them and waits. Nothing happens. The teacher asks a second time. Still silence. No child moves. But when the teacher asks for the third time, suddenly, simultaneously, all 3 children stand up and run to wash their faces. Why did this happen? The teacher's statement initially seemed completely useless. Every child already knew that at least one face was dirty, because they could see the others. But the teacher did not just provide a fact. The teacher turned a private fact into common knowledge. The first time the teacher asked, every child thought, well, I see dirt on them, so I cannot be sure about myself. A profound logical deduction occurred. A child realizes, If I were the only clean one, the other two would have instantly known they were dirty the first time, because they would have seen only one dirty face. But they did not move. Therefore, they must be seeing dirt on me. By the third request, the invisible chain of telepathic deduction closes, and absolute truth replaces illusion. This infinite hall of mirrors is not a child's game. It is the very mechanism that drives the insanity of global financial markets. Have you ever wondered why a stock market bubble can continue to inflate, even when every single rational person knows the asset is grossly overvalued? It is because knowing a truth is not enough. You are not playing the market. You are playing the other players. You hold on to the absurdly expensive stock because you know that other people know it is expensive, but you also know that they believe some other fool will buy it tomorrow for even more. We are not investing in reality. We are investing in the intersecting delusions of millions of strangers. A bubble, finally, bursts only when the fragile thread of common knowledge snaps, when suddenly everyone realizes that everyone else is about to run for the exit. In that horrifying moment, the invisible psychological structure collapses, and the financial world tears itself apart, based entirely on a shift in collective imagination. Chapter Summary. In this chapter, we navigated the infinite loop of common knowledge, discovering how our beliefs about other people's beliefs can create both profound logical deductions and apocalyptic financial illusions, proving that reality is often just a shared agreement. We have traveled through a labyrinth of human logic today. We have examined the interrogation rooms, the poker tables, the costly signals, and the halls of mirrors. What game theory ultimately teaches us is a deeply humbling philosophical lesson. It does not teach us how to dominate others, how to be ruthless, or how to win every conflict. Instead, it forces us to recognize the absolute permeability of our own existence. You cannot make a choice in a vacuum. Every action you take is a question thrown into the dark, and the outcome of your life is determined by the echoes that return from the people around you. Let us return to a question that plagues every city street. Why do two bitterly competing street vendors, selling the exact same product, ultimately place their carts right next to each other, forehead to forehead? It seems irrational. Why not separate and claim different territories? Game theory provides the final poetic answer. If they separate, the exhausted consumer must wander through the vast city to discover which vendor offers better quality or price. It requires too much effort. By standing directly beside their greatest rival, they create a centralized arena. The customer can stand in one place, compare, and make a choice. The fierce proximity creates a market magnet that draws the crowd. They discard their solitude and embrace their opponent because their proximity generates the very attention they need to survive. Sometimes, in this incredibly complex and often frightening matrix of human existence, the entity standing closest to you is not your enemy. They are the anchor holding your world in place. To be a true philosopher in this era is not to withdraw into solitary contemplation. It is to strive continuously, to read the grand chessboard of life, to understand the deep anxieties and mathematical logic guiding the hand of the stranger across from you. To see the game is to finally be free from merely existing as a helpless pawn. Thank you for joining me today on this immersive journey into the depths of the human matrix. If this exploration of game theory shifted your perspective on how society operates, please make sure to hit that like button and subscribe to the channel so you do not miss our next plunge into the mechanics of our reality. Before you close this video, I leave you with one final question to contemplate. Think about the greatest conflict in your life right now. Are you truly fighting an enemy, or are the two of you simply trapped together inside a mathematical equilibrium that neither of you dares to break? Leave your thoughts in the comments below. I will see you in the next video. Stay curious.